Alright, hello everybody. My name is Jose Guerrero, and I'm gonna do my presentation on animal testing. Alright, so the subject of investigation in animal testing that I am planning to do is whether animal testing should be allowed or not in order to gain the benefit of human beings. Alright, so what exactly is animal testing?
I can't even read that.
According to the definition theory, animal testing is the use of non-human animals in research and development projects, especially for purposes of determining the safety of substances such as food or drugs. So by definition theory, I mean that it's this definition that has been widely accepted by people around the world, that they decided to make this the official definition for animal testing. But despite it being the definition theory, it has some limitations. And the limitations in this are that within the definition, it does not tell us that the animals are going to be put through pain and suffering. It's just telling us like the overview. It's not really giving everything in detail. So of course it has some limitations because I'm not going to be like seeing it in person or being able to experience it firsthand. Alright, so some of the benefits are, one is that animal testing has led to many cures and treatments. So, in other words, it is beneficial to humans because even though we're testing on these animals and putting them through this suffering and pain, it's benefiting humans because it's giving us treatment. So, in other words, it's basically an advancement in science. Another benefit is no good alternate for this. There's no other good alternate for this testing. That means that since animals and humans are sort of similar, we have the ability to test on them because we have some sort of related genetics. So if something malfunctions on them, it is most likely to malfunction on us. Another benefit is that, oh well, I just said it, animals have similarities to humans, so it is beneficial for us to test on them because then humans don't have to be put through the pain and suffering, just these animals that have no rights. Okay, I just said it prevents human testing, which is a bonus factor because if humans were to be tested on, they would be the ones going through all this pain, and it would create problems within society, which we try to create so that all humans are created equal. Well, at least in the United States. Another benefit is that animals other than humans benefit from animal testing. So we are testing on these animals for the benefit of humankind. Like we get like the cure for diabetes, or not the cure, the development of insulin, because when you remove the pancreas, we could look at it and see what was wrong with it of an animal. So we compared it to humans, and that's how insulin was developed. But not only do we come up with these human innovations, but also for animals, like the rabies shot for dogs. Dogs would die of it, but since we test on dogs, we can have the ability to develop these vaccinations for them as well, not just for the benefit of humankind. Some more benefits are animal testing gets regulated. So, despite the fact that animals do get tested on and they do suffer and go through all this pain, there is laws in the state or in the country that try to prevent them from going through all this pain. So to prevent such drastic measures as death, for example, because these animals are being put through pain, but at least we're trying to prevent them from going to the extreme measures of pain. Another benefit is that other animals have shorter lives, so testing on them is better than testing on humans. This may seem to be wrong, but since other animals' lives are shorter than ours, in a way you could say that it's kind of better because they're gonna die sooner. So, I mean, even though it's mean, but it's something we have to accept for for the advancement of science in humans. And another benefit is that animals don't have rights, so it's okay to test on them. By this, I mean that um, even though no, we are testing on animals because they're not necessarily people. People are the ones with rights. This goes back to like the age we can say of like slavery, how like people, how Africans were not treated as humans; they were treated as property. I'm not saying that that's okay. We got through that point, that period of history in our lives, but I'm saying that these animals are just being treated as like property, so it's okay if we test on them because they don't have rights. Another benefit is that cosmetics need to be tested on animals for safety. So all that makeup that people wear in the TV shows or in programs that we all enjoy watching because they look good on camera has been able to be created thanks to all the innovations that were brought forth from animal testing. We have to see which sort of cosmetics are bad for humans, so we tested on animals that have very similar genetics to humans without the expense of sacrificing humans in the process. Another benefit is that animals are a small price to pay for animal advancements. So we are sacrificing them and putting them through pain, but all this is so in the end we can come up with all these innovations in science and for the lives of all kinds of animals, not just humans. Alright, so my opinion. Reason tells me that animal testing is the right thing to do. So in other words, since we are benefiting like in many ways from animal testing, reason tells me that it is okay for us to test on animals despite the fact that they're being put through all this pain and suffering while testing on them. And humans can benefit from it, which is another bonus that comes from animal testing. Another thing is that it can be considered to be an advancement in science. So even though we're hurting animals, we're advancing in science. So that's kind of a balance, I would say, that comes from the benefits of animal testing. Alright, since we already went over the benefits, let's go over some of the cons. Animal testing is immoral. By that I mean that it's not okay to test on animals just because they're animals. They have feelings just like humans do, so testing on them is cruel and immoral. There's also alternate testing methods. So we are basically choosing to test on animals, even though there is other testing methods like taking the cell of a person and duplicating and testing on that, which in the end may even be more accurate, but we are still choosing to test on animals. Animals and humans are not identical, so with this we can see that there's some differences between the genetics of some humans and animals. Even though they may possess similar genetics, they're not identical. So one thing that affects one animal may not necessarily affect another one, which means that, let's say a chimpanzee were to put on a cosmetic and it didn't affect them, that would not necessarily mean that it wouldn't affect the human. Animals and humans are not, oh no, I went over that one. Next one is drugs approved in animal tests are not necessarily safe. So just as I said before, the genes are not identical from humans to animals. So if one thing works on them, it may not necessarily work on humans. It's just like a risk that we take. And some things that are bad for, alright, I said that one already. Let's move on. Some more cons are that not all animals are protected by the law. So as I had said earlier, that laws protect animals from like some of the cruel things, but these laws don't protect all animals. Like mice, for example, they get killed because they're not really considered to be under this law that protects them and keeps them safe from all these malignancies that are taking place. Another is that not all tests that pass in animals are reliable to humans. So if one animal, let's say a mouse, gets some sort of drugs dropped into its eyes, and because it has eye irritation and it gets eye drops and nothing happens to the mouse, That doesn't necessarily mean that when humans use it, they are not going to be affected because we, like I had said before, we don't have the exact same genetics. So if one thing doesn't affect the mouse, it may affect the human, but it may affect. Alright, so as I was saying before, most animal tests are flawed because, well, I don't know why, but they're just flawed, which means that they're worthless. So we're basically putting these animals through this pain and suffering for nothing because they may not even work. We're just testing, so we're sacrificing these animals just to like benefit humans, which, as I would see it, is not necessarily a good thing. Another is that animals suffer like humans do. So even though these animals don't have rights, they still experience pain and suffering just like humans do, which means that we're putting them through all this stress and evil in order to benefit, but we're still affecting these other animals. We're considering ourselves to be like the higher animals, which is bad. And animal testing is more expensive than other forms of testing. So we're right here wasting this money while we could be using, like I had said before, the petri dish to like clone human skin and then test on that. But we're deciding to test on animals, which is just wasting money. So my opinion is, despite the fact that animal testing has many benefits, it is unfair for the animals. We are putting them through all this pain and not considering how they feel. We're just looking for the end result of what's going to come from it. They feel, so they have pain just like humans do. So we do it. We test on animals so that humans won't have to be tested on, so they won't have to go through this pain. But then we go and place it on these other animals. We're considering ourselves to be like the higher, like, race, I guess you could say. We test on other animals to keep them from testing on humans, like I had said before. And summing it up, I believe that the negatives outweigh the positives in this situation. Humans are animals just as much as chimps, and they deserve to be treated with equal rights since they're being put through all this pain and suffering just like humans would. But instead of putting it on humans, we're putting it on these other animals like if they were just our objects that we could use. And that's my bibliography.